Welcome to this explainer. When we think about maritime law, it's really easy to picture like a dusty, dark room just piled high with paperwork. But I want you to picture something completely different today. Imagine this explainer as a brightly lit cinematic movie. We're going to trace the grand, sweeping life cycle of a massive ocean-going vessel, straight from the legal blueprint of its birth, out into the sun-drenched, open waters of global commerce, all the way to its final golden hour sunset voyage. We're unpacking the dense legalities of Indian vessel registration, sure, but we're going to look at it for what it truly is, a highly structured, totally intricate system of global logistics, ownership, and responsibility. Okay, let's dive into this. Every majestic ship starts with a single rule. Seriously, before a 1,000-foot cargo vessel ever even touches the water, before the massive sheets of steel are even cut in the shipyard, the ship is meticulously constructed out of the sweeping regulations found in Section 44 of the Act. This section is literally the foundational script for our entire cinematic journey today. It grants the central government the sheer power to write the rules that bring these vessels into existence in the eyes of the law. Without this legal architecture, these ships are just floating metal, completely unable to participate in international trade. And the sheer comprehensiveness of Section 44 is captured in exactly 28 distinct administrative clauses. 28, running from Clause A all the way to Z, and then ZA to ZB. This is the comprehensive toolkit the central government uses to command what is frankly a staggering logistical undertaking. Every single step of a ship's legal existence, from the exact dimensions of its registration certificate to the precise way its name has to be painted on the hull, is captured somewhere in those 28 clauses. It's a total masterclass in regulatory foresight. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scope of what we're talking about here. Section 44 handles some highly diverse, high-stakes situations out there on the bright blue ocean. For example, Clause C covers the complex registration of foreign vessels chartered on what's called a bareboat charter cum demise contract by an Indian charterer. Basically, that allows a foreign ship to temporarily fly the Indian flag. Clause B provides the exact legal procedure for what authorities have to do if a massive vessel is just completely abandoned by its owners, which is crucial for preventing environmental and navigational hazards. And Clause D, it sets the strict conditions for temporarily registering a vessel that's making its final one-way trip to be recycled. It's a full spectrum of action. Now, looking at Section 44, subsection 1, it states, the central government may make rules to carry out the provisions of this part. This single mandate is the ultimate blueprint. It gives the government the unyielding authority to write rules for literally everything else we see in the Act. Under this mandate, they figure out the very math used to calculate a ship's gross and net tonnage, which, by the way, dictates the port fees the ship is going to pay worldwide. They even dictate the special circumstances for granting temporary passes when full registration is still pending. It is the legal engine driving the entire maritime machine. Section 2, navigating money and mortgages. So the ship has been built on paper. It's out on the high seas of bureaucracy, and now it's actively operating and changing hands. This is where the dynamic, fast-paced world of international finance crashes directly into maritime law. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Section 43 defines a vessel's owner. It's not a static concept, but a fluid legal status. It broadly includes any transferee or any person entitled under a transmission to the property in an Indian vessel. Because think about it, ownership of a multi-million-dollar asset can shift rapidly across different international entities, and the law has to be flexible enough to recognize those transitions instantly just to keep commerce moving. On one hand, we have the legal mechanics of transferring ship property. Section 44 mandates rules for the transmission of property due to sudden, unforeseen events, things like death or insolvency, dictating the exact instruments by which a vessel, or even just a share of a vessel, is legally transferred. On the other hand, we contrast this with the heavy financial machinery of securing mortgages. The rules dictate the exact form of the mortgage, how the registrar must record it to prioritize creditors, the liabilities of the mortgagee, and even how a mortgage itself can be bundled and transferred to someone else. It's this incredibly dynamic picture of a vessel slicing through the waves while massive, intricate financial machinery just churns seamlessly in the background. But none of that motion happens without maintaining the register book. Clause L of Section 44 specifically requires rules for how to keep this book, make entries, and maintain records. Think of this book as the vessel's unalterable log of its legal life. And why does this meticulous record-keeping actually matter? Because without it, the massive global supply chain that brings goods right to your front door would simply sink into chaos. If port authorities can't instantly verify ownership, a ship is denied entry, halting millions of dollars of cargo. Without a clear record of mortgages, insurers won't provide coverage, and banks won't finance the next voyage. This register book prevents customs disputes, it mitigates insurance failures, and stops ownership battles right at the port. It demands absolute precision. Let's move to and see how this builds into our final act. The Sunset Voyage, Section 43. Imagine the beautifully lit, emotionally resonant golden hour sequence of our explainer. The graceful, highly regulated, legal retirement of an Indian vessel is governed by Section 43, and it demands the exact same precision as its birth through a really rigorous three-step closure checklist. A ship can't just legally retire and vanish into thin air. First, it absolutely must honor its institutional debts. There can be no unsatisfied mortgage entered in its register. Second, and this really underscores the vital human element of this massive industry, there can be no outstanding claims from the master or the seafarers of the vessel in respective wages. The crew must be paid in full. Only when those two massive hurdles are cleared can the owner legally make the application to the registrar to close the registration. So the crucial point is Section 43, subsection 2, the final order of closure. Once that pristine application is received and the registrar is completely satisfied that all financial institutions are cleared and the crew is totally paid, they step in to finish the story. The registrar issues an official order to close the registration. They make the final entry in the register book, essentially the last keystroke of the ship's legal life, and finally, they forward a copy of the closure report to the Director General. It's a moment of really satisfying absolute finality. The legal life cycle is officially complete, freeing the vessel to be safely dismantled or repurposed. We've just traced the incredibly precise, deeply interconnected legal journey of a single ship, from the foundational rules of Section 44 to the sunset closure of Section 43. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this final thought. If it takes this much exacting detail, this much meticulous financial checking, and this much precise legal orchestration just to close one single vessel's registration, can you even imagine the legal choreography of the entire global fleet? It's a breathtaking logistical reality happening behind the scenes of our modern world every single day. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep marveling at the hidden systems that keep our world moving.